Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2022 film Blood Relatives. It's a Shudder original, and it's coming to Shudder on Tuesday, November 22nd. Not one of the normal Thursdays and sometimes Fridays. We got a Tuesday on our hands. This is a no-spoiler review, although as far as synopsis goes, I have to spoil something about the film, but it's something that's established like immediately in the film, so there's really no time. And I'm sure it's in all the promotional material. It's most likely in the trailer. I don't know because I don't watch trailers, but just know that I'm not really going to tell you the events of the film, but a little bit thematically and subtextually at the very end. So let's get into it. Blood Relatives, written and directed by Noah Segan. Now, this is a guy who is more known for acting, and most likely you'll watch the film and you'll be like, I've seen that guy. I've seen him in things. He's been in a bunch of, lower budget independent stuff, good stuff too. So I've enjoyed his acting. For me, though, he has a very particular type of acting that is kind of like, it's very low key. It's kind of like low energy, kind of like somewhat quirky, funny type guy, low energy mix, if that makes any sense. It's his style. He does it pretty well. And he's in this film, and he does the same thing. It seems like he is that character kind of all the time for the most part. He has actually directed something before, though. He did the segment in Scare Package of Mr. That's the one with the wolves, if you haven't seen it. Or if you have seen it, it's the one with the wolves. If you haven't seen it, shame on you. Watch Scare Package. It's awesome. And Scare Package 2 should be coming out at some point. I would have thought we would have gotten it in October, but I don't know. So quick synopsis. This is about a vampire who is traveling across the United States, just kind of living his life that way, in a sense. And he ends up being stalked to a degree by a young girl who catches up with him. It's his daughter. Okay, that's all established like within the first 10 minutes, basically, maybe even less. And then it's just kind of about that relationship and, a burgeoning new relationship because he didn't really have any relationship with her prior to her showing up. So a lot of the film is very relationship driven. So if you like slower films that are basically about, two characters interacting for the majority of the film, and then every now and then you get other characters showing up and adding a little bit to the story, this may be your film. The pacing is slow for that reason, which is the case for a lot of films like this. I get it because it's a low-budget film. You can tell it's a very low-budget film. There are things I like about it, but there are things that really aren't for me. And one of the big things that's not for me is the way in which this whole relationship-focused film comes together. It really feels to me like not a lot happens. I mean, stuff happens between these characters, but other than that, not a lot happens, in my opinion. Now, like I said, there'll still be people who really enjoy this, and I don't think it's a bad film at all by any stretch. If anything, I think it's a good starting point for Segan for directing. And on the note of actual directing, I think he does a good job with the actual direction in the film. Cinematography direction looks good in this film. There are some really cool camera movements, some very engaging camera angles. There's some inspired stuff there from a directorial standpoint. So I am interested to see what he does in the future. Hopefully, given a bigger budget, maybe take on a writing partner a little bit for the story. He's good at writing dialogue, I will say. I do like the dialogue between these characters. Well, I mean, every character who shows up, the dialogue feels real. And I'm going to assume that's because of his experience as an actor. Like, he knows what sounds natural when it comes to dialogue, so he's able to write that pretty well. I just think from the standpoint of actually putting the story together, it doesn't quite come together all that well for me. The concept is good. I do like the concept, and like I said, I like the interactions with the two main characters and what kind of grows there, but other than that, it's just kind of like, what are we doing, in my opinion? So, the beginning scene of it is pretty slow and drawn out, and that immediately had me thinking, I think the pacing is going to be extremely slow. I think this is going to be a film that feels like it was stretched for runtime. And that's how it ended up playing out for me. It really does feel like it was stretched for runtime. I do think this would probably be a lot better served as a short film because there's just not enough meat on the bone. There are things that could have been done with this story, but I think that between Segan not going there in conjunction with having a very low budget, that's how you ended up with this kind of, it feels like it's running in place to a degree, the story. So it's, yeah, not my fave. The music I really did like in this film. Specifically the music they start with, which kind of comes back from time to time in the film, going really heavy on the oboe, which is really interesting because you don't really hear pronounced oboe in a lot of songs, especially in horror films. So I was really keyed into that, and I was just like, oh, good music. The music is very good for this film. So that's one of my favorite things. It also helps add like this kind of like light, quirky feel to the film that gives it this air of fun, this air of charm to it. So I like that. Doug Benson is in this, by the way. I just had to throw that in there. It doesn't spoil anything. He's not like a huge part of the film, but if you don't know who Doug Benson is, he's like a stoner comedian. I've always, liked him, so it was just kind of funny to see him pop up in this film. Like I said, directing is good. At times, the acting gets a little bit shaky, but for the most part, pretty serviceable for a lower budget film. And I do have to give a shout out to Victoria Morales. She did quite a nice job, I will say. Would be interested to see her in more stuff she does. She's the daughter in this one. There's a quirkiness that permeates the film that is actually extremely charming. There is just this feeling of charming aspect to the film. And I think it's a combination of the way it's shot, the acting job that Segan and Morales do, the bits of humor that are baked in there, the quirkiness of Segan's main character, and the music. Did I already say that? Hopefully I didn't. But the music. All those things kind of just come together to give this quirky charm to the film. And it is charming. It feels very, very charming. So I think for that reason alone, it'll probably hold the attention of people who decide to watch the film. So that's cool. There is low-key humor at play here that ends up being pretty fun from time to time. It's not like overt humor. It is kind of more like understated, low-key type humor, which sometimes works extremely well, and there are times in this where it does work really well. There are other times where it just kind of just moves by, and you just kind of, I don't want to say you miss it, you just are kind of like, okay, that didn't really matter to me, The relationship between the main characters is central to the film, and it's what does shine about the script writing itself, like I said. Not only the dialogue that I already talked about is really well done, but just that the creation of that relationship and how it kind of grows and changes is done in a strong way. It's just everything else, story-wise, just seems like it's not even there, in my opinion. The film ends and you're kind of like, oh, it's over, I guess. I mean, that's literally how I felt. I said it out loud. I was like, oh, it's over? Like, it just seems like it just kind of ends and you're just like, I felt like we were going to go somewhere, like we were going to do something more. Now, that said, this film is under an hour and a half, so if you choose to watch it, you're not like wasting your time or anything. Also, really weird thing. I look at things when I'm doing my reviews, and I happen to I have a Boondock Saints poster on the wall over there, and there's literally one of the producers for the film is named Lloyd Segan. That last name is spelled exactly as Noah Segan's is. Just weird. Anyway, sidetrack. Sorry about that. The pacing really got me with this film. It really, really, really did. But I know people will find this interesting. Not everyone, but it's going to find its viewership. And I always hope that for every single film, because like I said, there are good things about this film. 100% there are. For what the story is, it's too long. Maybe a short would have been better. I already talked about that. There's a generational differences aspect to the film, which rolls into the main character's relationship. It's something that you would assume would end up happening in a situation like this, but I think it's handled pretty well. It's not like a central part of the film, but it's in there, and you definitely notice it, and it's written pretty well. Vampirism is used in a pretty solid way in this to bolster the relationship and bolster the theme that's at play within the film. So I like that aspect of it. It's like I said, there's a great concept there. I just think the overall execution from a story standpoint wasn't great, and also just that pacing situation. Other than that, there's a bunch of good stuff going on here. Out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm in the middle. I got to go 2.5 stars. I can't go any higher than that, but I would love to hear what other people think about this film. Go ahead and put it in the comments. Love it, hate it, in between. Give me a sentence or two just letting me know. Don't just say I like it or I don't like it. Because, you know, when comments like that happen, I'm just kind of like, I can't interact with that. It's like, okay, thanks. Do me a quick favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate that. That's your best way to repay me if you like any video I've ever done, including this one, so please do that. Also hit the notification bell button, because then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, which I'm doing at least 4 a week, which I think is a good amount. But regardless, thanks for taking your time to watch this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.